We are IARA Specialist Support Coordination.
We provide support coordination and psychosocial recovery coach to NDIS participants in regional Queensland from Rockhampton through to Cairns.
We are the experts in complex specialised support coordination services.
Supporting people who are discharging from hospital.
Who have a disability that has an extreme impact on their life.
And who are engaged with services like the Office of Public Guardian.
We support people in regional and remote areas in Queensland. We are local, supporting locals.
We are submitting this video to the NDIS review panel in a hope that it sheds light on the challenges that we face as support coordinators in regional and remote areas. We really hope that this provides some insights and recommendations for the NDIS review panel so that it helps participants on a long-term basis. The largest barrier that we face is the underfunding for support coordination and capacity building. How can we build capacity if we can't build rapport and do face-to-face communication?
Face-to-face, either someone here at my house, or we go to the big office in there, and we go there, at least then I can talk to everyone. Like last time it was supposed to be face-to-face, no, on the fucking phone again. And it just pissed me right, because I need to talk and that a long time. I know sometimes I can't talk properly, but it takes a little long time. But what they do is, nah, do this, do that, and that's done. Yeah, it's not right.
We have over 40 support coordinators across our regional and remote areas, and we support the most vulnerable people in our areas. And a lot of them require face-to-face communication. In fact, over 90% of our clients require face-to-face communication, and we just aren't funded to do that. Another barrier that we face is the lack of NDIA delegate understanding and engagement with our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander participants.
When it comes down to culture with NDIS, I don't think they're culturally responsive to our preference of how we want to meet with the planners. Now, English being maybe our third language, and I'm speaking on behalf of all Torres Strait Islanders, or any community for that matter. English is not our first language, and sometimes we have to do stuff face to face, which is easier for us to understand what NDIS, NDIA are talking about.
Often we face misleading and confusing messaging from NDIA representatives. From the National Call Centre to delegates to LACs, we ask the same question and we'll get a different answer. Support coordination is particularly challenging when there is an intersect between the health system, the justice system, the education system, or the child protection system.
I was like drowning through all the networks that I had to try and find, and it was a matter of ringing this person up, who told me to ring this person up, and this went on for months before I could even get somewhere. You just like a number and you're just in a queue and you're in the system, you have to do it the way they want, even though meanwhile months and months and sometimes years are going past with no support. Child safety, as I said, they're eager to close their cases. Once it's closed, you are left high and dry.
Participants in crisis or sudden need of support are not getting the timely support that they need from the agency. Often we've been told by delegates to just put them back in hospital.
So at 3 p.m. today, my auntie is going to be socially admitted to the hospital because she's running out of funding, and unfortunately I'm not getting any answer from the NDIS quick enough, so we have no choice but to get her admitted as no support can be provided anymore for her for a high disability need.
After hearing our story, here is our insights and recommendations for the NDIS review panel. Firstly, please fund the appropriate amount of support coordination for our participants. It is incredibly hard to build capacity with somebody if we can't get to know them, if we can't build rapport and trust. We really need to build rapport with our participants, especially our First Nations participants, and that requires a lot of face-to-face work. That requires a lot of travel in remote and regional areas, and that needs to be funded. Another recommendation is that the NDIA release clear and documented procedures about NDIA decision making.
Especially an ageing man when you lose your life partner. That's hard to deal with. Who helps you with that? My disability coordination officer helped me through that period. That was the most difficult in my life. She helped me get support, have someone who could provide services to get me up, get me out of bed, get me cared for around the clock. Having a DCA that cares enough to do that is so important. Without that, misery is often the outcome.
Thirdly, let's address the gaps that exist between the NDIS and the mainstream health, justice and guardian systems. Maybe there is a system that can be created where support coordinators have delegation to provide support across all systems, assisting participants across all interfaces. This is a recommendation that should be acted upon immediately: crisis funding, or access to funding when a participant loses their informal supports. No one should ever be told to go back into hospital.
My wife was one of my supports, and when she died and I didn't have funding to stay in my own home, the package that I was provided wasn't enough to live in my own home. So I didn't know what to do. So I appealed, and eventually the package was reviewed and I got more funding, but you shouldn't have to go through that stress. And it was horrible, you know, and then it's like, didn't the people on the panel understand about disabilities and that I would need that support?
There should be access to immediate funding to put in reasonable and necessary care and supports. This recommendation is a suggestion for the NDIA and how they can support thin markets. Can the NDIA look to fund support coordinators to stimulate market growth and options by facilitating coordinated funding proposals in regional and remote areas? For example, in Ayr and Bowen, our team worked with local individuals to teach them about the NDIS and how they could provide services. This stimulated growth in core supports available in those remote areas. And a last thought, it needs to be noted that support coordination cannot always build a participant's capacity due to the nature of their disability. With the client group that we support, people living with complex, chronic, progressive, neurological conditions, they have diminished capacity to navigate the NDIS system, and often this capacity deteriorates over time, not builds. The NDIA should really reflect around the wording around goal setting and capacity building. It is not a language that does relate to everybody, and it can be offensive at times.
I'm lucky. I've got a really good disability coordination officer, but for people who haven't got that in their plan, it can be really hard.